Well, in jail, in my programs, I always spoke about what I was in prison for. You know, because I was,
That's different from
yeah,
saying,
to authorities, not until 6 months ago.
okay. And when you say you always told people in prison what you were in prison for, did you tell them you actually committed the act or that's what you were convicted of?
No, I told them I actually killed somebody because a lot of the programs I was in, we was trying to save kids that was going home, getting killed, or coming back to prison with long sentences. So amongst a lot of us older guys, which at the time I wasn't old, I was in my mid-20s, early 30s, but to the younger guys, we were considered old, that we was trying to help, you know, in order to get their respect, we had to tell them why we was in prison. So I used to always tell them I'm in prison for killing somebody over 2 ounces of weed, you know, and I'm never going home. And this isn't the life that you want to live when you go home. You know, I want you to be a success story and not be like me. So all my groups, I always told my story in the AACC groups, Toastmasters. When I did my icebreaker, I always explained what I was in jail for, because that was the only way I can get through to them.
What about your family? You mentioned you last came clean as far as outwardly
Yes.
6 months ago, but what about to your family? You were carrying the weight of knowing you did it for all those years.
Yes.
Looks like you did significant programming
Yes.
during that period as well. How were you able to carry that and at the same time digest and learn from these programs?
A lot of it was that, you know, I was ashamed, man. I took somebody's life, so I was ashamed, and I didn't want my family to be ashamed of me. So most of my life in prison, I lived my life to try to be the person that my parents wanted me to be when I was home, but I wasn't. So I tried to live that in prison. And so I just, you know, I always probably assumed that they knew, but I just didn't want to burden them, to let them know that your son, yeah, that your son, you know, is a bad person.
And what do you think about that today? The idea that you were deceiving those closest to you.
Today, I look back and I'm like, I should have told him, because maybe, you know, the support might have been a little bit more different. You know, I've been in prison this whole time, and although I talk to my family on a regular basis, we got close bonds, but I lived like I was abandoned, like I was by myself. So most of my family was my prison family. I never really told them like my problems in jail or what I went through. I kept that to myself and to my peers, because we was all in the same boat together. So when I had problems, I had issues, I talked to somebody in my peer group. That was like sort of our counseling, because we all was going through the same problems and hurt together. So I didn't want to.
Changed?
Somewhat, now I talk to my pops a lot. You know that I love him. It's tough talking, but that's my dad, man. He's always been my hero since I was a kid. You know, so and my mom's, I try not to burden her with too much because she worries, and you know, she's not in good health, so she worries a lot about me. So I try my best, really, not to tell her anything.
Who else do you have in that family you're close to?
My little brother, I speak to my stepmoms, my daughter. I got friends, you know, so, you know, anytime I got issues now that I'm older, I talk to them about it. I get their opinion, you know. Before,
What do you think of all this now that you've come clean?
they still love me, is what I thought they
I
wouldn't.
kind of figured that, but
Yeah.
I mean in terms of having that conversation.
They go with it, you know. It blew my mind because my dad, you know, was like, he knew. You know what I'm saying? And so it was kind of shocking. I kind of figured he did, but you know, he told me, he was like, I knew, and this is why, you know, I have the problems I have and go through what I go through. You know what I'm saying? So
And how do you feel about that? Learning that he carried that burden of, thinking that maybe you didn't have something to do with it, and you never really helped him with it.
yeah, it sucked because it felt like I failed him too. The one person that I always try to be good in his eyes, it's like I failed him. You know, but you know, and knowing, hopefully, you know, knowing what I did in the programs I did and who I became, you know, hoping that he'd be proud of me.
All right. We're going to get to your innocence claim.
Yes.
But before we do that, I'm curious to know about your feelings towards the victim, Paul Toussaint. Did you ever learn anything about him, and what do
Oh,
you think about
Jeffrey
all this-
Poisson.
What's that?
Jeffrey Poisson.
Yeah. What did I say?
Paul.
Paul, actually, sorry, Jeffrey. Correct. Yeah. How do you feel about that?
For a long time, the excuse my language, I felt like a piece of shit. I took a man's life over 2 ounces of weed that his family will never have the chance to enjoy any part of him having grandkids, seeing his kids get married, anything. You know, I did that. And I understood I did that, you know, from the minute I stepped into jail. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about that. And part of what I do and try to do is to try to get back to him because I took something.
When did you first started thinking that way, feeling the remorse?
I wanna say probably like around 90, 97.
Oh,
You
while
know,
you were in prison.
while I was in prison, because for a long time I was selfish and I was angry.
Tell us about